Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a truly special online event today. It's called Liberate Your Divine Child Within. Build resilience as an empath through energy work, nervous system support, and sacred reparenting. My name is Stephen Dynam, the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm really delighted to be with you here since really at the root of so many challenges of our adult world are unhealed childhood wounds. So many of us are walking around with patterns, deep things in our psyche that have just never been healed. And we're going to get to explore how to do a profound spiritual, deep clearing and healing of some of those wounds with a remarkable pioneer. Her name is Lisa Campion. She's an author, Reiki master, and psychic counselor. She's taught for Shift a number of times, and it's really going to bring some very fresh, innovative perspectives on how to do this healing of the divine child within and liberation of the divine child within. And if you like what you learned today, we're going to have a chance to go much deeper with a brand new program with her that we'll share more about towards the end of the hour. So with that said, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us again at Shift.
Oh, thank you, Stephen. It's always a pleasure to be with you and always an incredible pleasure to teach with the Shift Network.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in with a little bit of your journey, particularly, I'd say, focusing on the aspect of recognizing this reclamation and liberation of the divine child, why that really became such a central thing for you on your path.
Yeah, it's really been at the cornerstone of a lot of my own personal growth work and the work that I do with my students and my clients. I started working as a psychic when I was 19 years old, and that was back in the 80s. And I quickly learned that I really needed more skill. So I went after university, I went back to school and I became a therapist. And it was at that time I was working with more of a sort of Jungian style therapy where I learned about archetypes. And a big part of my training was working with the archetypes of the inner child and the inner critic and some of the other archetypes. And the other thing that happened back then was that they, of course, would put me in therapy as with one of their therapists. And my therapist used to say, anytime I brought up an issue, the answer is your inner child, as if it was kind of like whatever was going on in my life, whatever thing I was in, it was all down to the inner child. And now it's like almost 40 years later, and here I am still doing inner child work really absolutely every day. And I do it, I teach inner child work to my psychic students, to my empath people I'm training to help understand their empathic nature. And I find it just permeates like every level of my being, from my relationships out to my business, the things that I'm doing. And I feel like we all have a little bit of a conflict inside of us where our higher self is directing us towards, movement, evolutionary movement, and who we are as humans. And then we get a little static, a little resistance from our inner child, so that things that my higher self's like, yeah, write another book. Yes, do this. My inner child's like, don't make me do that hard, scary thing. And so I don't think I would be doing, I know that I wouldn't have done the things that I've done in my professional career, my personal life, if I really wasn't constantly giving my inner child that support, that care, that love. And for me, it's been about people always say, you've got to love yourself. And doing inner child work, and especially this work with the divine child, helped me understand how to actually do that. It's great to say you've got to do it, but how do we do it? And learning to attend to myself in this loving way has been it. And I think especially for us sensitives and empaths, it's a really, really critical part of our healing.
Well, thank you for sharing about your journey. And I'd love for you to reflect a little bit more about, particularly, I think, from the more psychic and spiritual standpoint of how do you perceive the inner child? Why is it creating that resistance? Sometimes it's impeding our unfolding or our soul's intention rather than helping.
Yeah, the child part of us really doesn't like change. It likes the comfort zone. It likes the known. And a lot of this has to do with like our nervous system and nervous system regulation is such a huge important part of doing inner child work. But when we are in stretching, into the new territory in our spiritual evolution, we that part kicks up a fuss because it doesn't like change. It doesn't like doing the new hard scary thing. So especially in our spiritual evolution, we have to deal with that. I think a lot of people too, Stephen, as children had maybe not such great experiences in their childhood of being told they were too sensitive, told they were too psychic, or even having a little PTSD around some of their psychic experiences. So a lot of times in our spiritual unfoldment, we have to go back and heal those wounds that we received as children, that maybe we were told we were too sensitive, too psychic, or we knew too much. If you're a really sensitive, empathic child, it makes grownups around you uncomfortable. If you see too much, know too much, feel too much. And I think we just got, we got the smackdown. So many of us did. And that really tender part needs a lot of love and attention to like step into our spiritual gifts.
So you talk quite a bit about the shadow and the light of the inner child, and maybe share a little bit about that, and then how we can start to understand what the divine child is within that context.
Yeah, so I think so many of us are familiar with the shadow side of the inner child, and that is the part of our child that holds the unprocessed, unhealed wounds of our childhood. That might be holding on to whatever happened to you as a child that you haven't had a chance to fully process yet. So it might be anxious or depressed or traumatized even. And I think that's the part that we know because we feel it. We feel it in our bodies. We feel it in our beings as anxiety, depression, and all those things. And it's not all of who our inner child is. Fortunately, we also have this beautiful light side of the inner child. And that light side is the inherent joy, spontaneity, playfulness, creativity, intuition, imagination that all children have. And I think that I really believe that our childhood self, the unwounded, the healed part of our inner child is like the most pure soul essence we have. It's kind of how our soul shows up with the most purity here on the planet. And if you look at little kids, like 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds playing, you can see they're shining their essence out in such a beautiful, unhindered way. And it's really worth doing inner child work because we want to get back to that. I always say, like, if you want to have any fun in your life, you should do inner child work because it's the part of us that knows how to play, knows how to have fun, knows how to create worlds with our imagination, knows how to sometimes be a pure channel for your own soul. And that's really what the divine child is. So the divine child is like that pure soul essence that exists in this part of you. And as we heal the wounded part, we step more and more into the light side where we can then really embody the divine child and live a life of joy, of creativity, of spontaneity, of play, and really beautiful spiritual gifts like intuition.
Love for you to share a little bit more about the divine child and how you can sort of use that almost like a roadmap into the deeper qualities of your soul.
Yeah, once we have done enough healing work on the wounded side of the child, I feel like the divine child almost becomes like an oracle, like as part of our higher self and how that higher self is communicating to us really directly. So I think it becomes part of your intuition. And when we listen to our divine child, we can really get guided. And it goes against a lot of times what our mind is telling us. Your mind might be telling you to really buckle down and work harder and, succeed and do these things. And your divine child is going to be showing you along your spiritual path through more play, more the power of creative imagination, the power of following your intuition, the power of living fully in the moment with joy. I think if we want to live more joyful lives, connecting to the intuitive power of the divine child is a really powerful way to do it.
You mentioned a couple times now that it's a portal to your intuition. Maybe share a little bit about why the divine child is so important for really accessing that intuition.
Yeah. I mean, so many children, I think children are born incredibly intuitive and really connected to the other side. So I think it's our natural birthright as humans that children are close to the other side. They haven't sort of moved away from that. They haven't really disconnected from their connection to source, to, the spiritual worlds, to our ancestor spirits. And in a way, we sort of train it out of them. Like as parents, as adults, many of us, when we were children, got that, um, you know, suppressed or denied. We didn't get to really live in that side of us. So when we activate the divine child, we're really so deeply connected to spirit in this very pure way. There's sort of a purity about the divine child that um, gives us like almost like an direct voice of our soul through us.
And how do the childhood wounds fit into that ability to access our intuition through the divine child?
Well, I think we have to do a little cleanup there, and we have to, learn to make distinctions between the wounded side of, the wounded side of your child may have a really hard time feeling the difference between your anxiety and intuition. And as we sort of unwind those wounds and we settle down the nervous system, we just get a very clear, flow of intuitive information. That those wounds kind of clog up the channels. They create distortion, and the traumas and wounds that we all hold cloud the message. So the clearer our inner child is, the clearer the channel we are for psychic messages. So sometimes we have to go back there. I would say we all have to go back there and clean up a little bit, clear the static out of the channel by healing those wounds.
How might, when you're doing a session or reading somebody or how do you actually bring in the divine child and work with the divine child to sort of enhance your intuition?
I think like everybody has a different way of accessing their child, their inner child, their divine child. So finding a way for you to access that is really important. It might be through journaling, it might be through tapping and EFT, it might be through just speaking out loud to your child or through guided meditations. So finding a way to access sort of quieting the conscious mind and accessing it sort of lives in our subconscious self. So sometimes we have to quiet the conscious mind and open access to our subconscious through guided meditation, journaling, or tapping. There's a lot of really beautiful ways to do it, through art, through play, through creativity. And I think everyone really who's interested in inner child work needs to find a way that works for them, that allows them to speak directly to their inner child.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, how does it, and I know you've done a lot of work with the nervous system as well, and share a little bit about some of the context of working with the nervous system and why that's really important to do this divine child work.
Yeah, we really can't access the divine child when our nervous system is triggered or we feel really jacked up that way. So it just creates too much pressure and tension in our system. So we have to feel safe. We have to like relax the body and move into a state of safety for the divine child to emerge. When your nervous system's really triggered, what you're going to get is the wounded child. And that's okay too, because we need to work through that and do some healing work there. The more you can relax the nervous system, the more you can come out of fight or flight, and you in a state of like nervous system rest, then we have a lot more connection to the divine child. So it's really important not only to learn ways to speak directly to the inner child, but also ways to settle the nervous system regulation, and emotional regulation. I think they really go hand in hand. And those are tools and skills I think all humans should have. I wish I could wave a magic wand and teach everyone on the planet how to nervous system regulate, how to emotional and regulate their emotions, because I just don't think we would have any problems in the world if we all could do that. And I can't teach everyone, but I sure want to teach as many people as I can those skills. When we do, we calm. I mean, our inner child, really, especially the wounded side, wants to be calmed, soothed, settled, comforted. And when we do those nervous system regulation and emotional regulation techniques, that's what happens. It's like a very beautiful way to care lovingly for this very tender and vulnerable part of you. And when that part feels safe and settled and happy, the divine child just naturally emerges.
You do a lot of work around what's called sacred reparenting. So once you've accessed your divine child, how do you sort of like help it grow up or sort of
Yeah.
grow into its full potential?
Yeah, sacred reparenting is so beautiful. And it really is like regular daily practice. I don't think that inner child work is one and done, although we can do quite a lot if we focus our intention on it, for a period of time. But sacred reparenting is over time. We cultivate a very loving relationship with our inner child. That so every day I check in with my inner child every day. And sometimes, like, how are you doing, inner child? And sometimes she's like, I'm doing great, no problems here, we're all good. And other times she's like, it's not good today. And when I'm having a day like that, we go through the sacred reparenting process, which is really about learning to validate your feelings, showing your inner child that you can step in to your life from the adult perspective and take care of the hard, scary things in your life from an adult perspective. And that, you care about what your inner child feels and thinks about. And then the inner child also needs to go play. There's this sort of a step-by-step process we go through that is a reparenting process that is really done on a regular basis and an as needed basis. As life continues to be challenging and triggers us, we know what to do. We know how to care for that part of us. And it's not difficult. The difficult thing is to really do it all the time whenever you need it.
Well, I think this has really been great to lay some of the theoretical foundations for this work. And now I wonder if you want to share a little bit about more of the how it unfolds and accessing the divine child, and then lead us in an experience.
Yeah. So I think that the how it unfolds and what we can do today to unfold that is to do a really beautiful guided meditation that's going to allow us to really become embodied, to get in our bodies, to be grounded, and to then find a way to dialogue with a child. It's so interesting to me because when we do inner child meditations, you can be rest assured that your subconscious will dish you exactly the version of your inner child that you need to speak to today. So we'll, have an opportunity to see who shows up, what part of your child, what age they are, how they feel, what they look like. Give them a chance to really share how they feel, share with you what they need. And as we do that and we give that to our inner child, we then we get access to the divine child. And the divine child always has a message for us. So there's a beautiful opportunity to receive a message directly from your divine child that might really help you move forward in your life right now.
All right, well, let's jump in and do the work.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. So I just really invite everyone to close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that. And if you don't, just soft focus your eyes and take a deep breath. Super good to have your feet on the floor if you can get your feet on the floor. Take a really deep breath. And as you breathe in, just recall your energy, bring yourself back home to your heart. And every inhale breath, you're coming more and more home, back to your heart, back to your belly, back to your tailbone. And with your exhale breaths, you're just going to let anything your heart is holding or your belly is holding release down your legs and out the bottoms of your feet into the earth. So you can imagine your tailbone is extending, dropping down like the root of a tree. This is the grounding cord, so we're going to get really grounded. And let that grounding cord drop through whatever chair you're in, through the layers of the building you're in, deep down, down, down into the planet. Make it really wide and make it really deep. And maybe you connect with the energy of the earth a little bit. Feel the energy of the earth rising up to meet you. Let it move up through the grounding cord, up through your legs, into your belly, into your heart. Maybe even up through your head and out the top of your head. We're just grounding, clearing, and bringing ourselves fully present in the moment. Then settle yourself into your heart. The heart is a beautiful gateway portal to do inner child work. So as you come into your heart, just breathe. Let your inhale breath open your heart even more. Maybe you see a light in your heart. And each inhale breath, that light's going to get a little bigger a little more expansive, almost like a portal or a doorway opening. And then I invite you to step through when you feel ready, step through that portal of your heart and just imagine, pretend, or visualize that you're entering a beautiful inner sanctuary. It might be a garden, it might be a field or woods or a beach by the ocean. You can take a few moments just to look down at what's at your feet. Look all around you. What can you hear? Do you sense or know about where you are? And as you settle into this inner sanctuary, you're just going to call forth your inner child. Invite your inner child into this beautiful, safe sanctuary. And you can trust that your subconscious, your inner self will show you exactly what you need to see here. Maybe it's like looking through pictures in a photograph album. So you might see almost a photograph you remember of yourself. Or you might have a memory of yourself as a child that comes through. Sometimes people don't see anything, they just feel or sense or know. That's all okay. Just take a moment to notice, like, how old is this part of you? Notice what they're wearing, what they look like. And notice what they're doing. Maybe they're playing and singing and skipping. Maybe they're crying and hiding, or maybe they look like they're feeling some pretty strong feelings. Whatever's happening is okay. It's just really good and important information. So you can imagine that the adult you might sit near your child. You might sit next to them. You might invite them to come closer. And if there are some strong feelings here, it's okay. You can ask your inner child how they feel. So the most important thing is to validate their emotions. And what you want to say, let them know, is that no matter what they're feeling, it's okay. It's okay if they're happy or sad or angry. Whatever they're feeling is perfectly fine. And that you're here for it. There's incredible healing in witnessing and validating and holding space for whatever feelings there are. And you might ask this child part of you, what do they need from you? Do they need to feel safe, to have you pay attention? Do they need to feel protected? Do they need permission to be amazing? Just, we're going to offer that in some way, whatever they're requiring or requesting. See if you can find a way to tell them that you'll do your best to give that to them. It's possible that your inner child would receive a hug or want to be snuggled in some way. And as you are sending them love, we just are going to see them imagine them as more and more radiant. So the wounded child and the divine child are really the same. It's the same child. And as we lovingly care for this child, we invite the divine child to come through. Ask your inner child to reveal to you their divine nature. Maybe it's playful fun. Maybe it's creativity. Maybe they're building sandcastles or forts or flying imaginary airplanes or battling pirates, or maybe they're quiet and just sitting and watching the flowers grow. See if you can feel their amazing purity of spirit, their divine essence. And now they have a healing for you and a message for you. You might even have a question you want to ask or some issue in your life where you need guidance. Ask your divine child, be ready to receive a message directly from them. This wise, knowing, nobody knows you better than this part of you. And that answer may come as a word, a symbol, a feeling, an image, a knowing, a gift, an object. Just receive it. Now we're just going to ask this child part of you, whether they want to snuggle into your heart or if they want to come back to the room with you. Or maybe they want to stay in their inner sanctuary and play. And any of those things are fine. We share some gratitude. So give them one last snuggle. Thank them so much for sharing their time with you today. Begin to find your way back to your heart, to your belly. Feel your body again. Feel your feet on the floor. Take a really, really, really deep breath. And if there's a lot of extra energy and emotion in you right now, just exhale it down your legs, out the bottoms of your feet, down the grounding cord into the earth. Just want to ground it out, ground it down. Feeling your heartbeat, feeling your body again. Maybe you find a little movement in your fingers and toes. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
That was lovely. Thank you. I want to ask about what do you do next with what came?
I think journaling about it is a really good idea. Sometimes capturing that is powerful. It can be like a dream, or if we don't capture and write it, we can kind of lose the ideas of what happened. So I'd get it into a journal, and then make good on your word. So if your inner child requested something, see if you can find a way to do that. Maybe it's more time to play or more creative time. Maybe your inner child needs a snack and a nap. That always sorts me out. So finding some way to sort of put your money where your mouth is and honor what you said you would do is a really, really important part of inner child work. And then I would, just take to heart whatever message they gave you. Sometimes this opens up a really powerful channel to our inner self, and the information will come through in the next 24 hours. So pay attention to your dreams, your hunches, nudges, your intuition may continue to unfold answers for you over the next 24 hours.
So I wonder if what happens. So you're kind of moving into the sacred reparenting. Do you get to a point where you start to merge with your inner child or divine child, or is it always like you're a little bit like two aspects of one being?
I think there is more of a merging, and when that happens, we have so much more fun. we have so much more access to that playful aspect of us, to that the part that feels wonder, excitement, and joy, and just being alive and being down here on planet Earth. So I think we get more of a merging, and then I think things happen. We'll still get triggered or still encounter challenges which require more of the I'm going to take over as the parent and I'm going to be like step into my adult self, calm the voice of the inner critic, and really lovingly caretake the child. But I think that as we do this, the things that trigger us it's a lot harder to trigger us, and we're much more resourced in knowing how to attend to that part of ourselves.
I'd love for you to give a few examples of people that you've been working with the divine child and some of the things that they might have put into motion or action that led in some really fascinating new directions for them.
Yeah. I recently worked with somebody who was sort of going through a career transition and trying to figure out what to do. They were leaving a corporate job that offered a lot of security, but didn't really make them very happy. And as they got more and more in touch with their divine child, she left her corporate job and started opened a yarn store. She loved yarn, knitting, crochet, and she started teaching there and blogging about it, YouTubing about it. She became quite famous as an influencer and an artist, fabric artist. And I think she's quite in demand. And who knew that you could? She was like, I don't think I can make a living out of doing these things that she loves to do. So I think that's something that can happen a lot. Is when they say, Stephen, the people say, follow your bliss. Well, how do we know what our bliss is? Our inner child, our divine child, that's what they're geared for. That's what they know. Um, and I also really worked with somebody who cleared up a lot of health issues from doing inner child work. And their inner child was really running a lot of unprocessed emotion through their body. And they were feeling very ill. They had all kinds of autoimmune and chronic pain. No, doctors could never explain really what was going on. And as she did a lot of healing work for her traumatic childhood, she stopped feeling pain, stopped her autoimmune issues, really cleared up. She found a different way to process her feelings,
Hmm.
and cleared up quite a lot of her health problems.
That's remarkable. So, are there other things that we might not necessarily have associated as being symptoms of an unhealed inner child that you've noticed as well?
I think a lot of anxiety, depression. I think there are certain people who run everything through their body. They somatize everything. I think people suffer when they don't have enough creative outlets. So as adults, we sometimes minimize the value of creativity and play. We think that's optional. We think we don't have time for that. When really creativity and play are such important parts of our human experience. And there's been a lot of research lately that say it's not just fun, it's really good for our brain health. It's really good for continued longevity and aliveness, vitality. Um, you know, so on every level of our being, creativity and play, especially if you're an empath, creativity and play will help fill your energy tanks if you're feeling drained, bring down your stress levels. It's not, it seems at this point, it's not an optional thing that maybe you have time to do every other Saturday or whatever, but something that you should do all the time as a lifestyle for all mental health and physical health and spiritual health reasons.
Hmm. Can you give us some more examples of the kinds of healing that's often required to deal with some of the deeper childhood wounding to the inner child? So, some examples of how you go about that.
Yeah, I think it's a lot about um, under creating a relationship with your inner child, that your inner child is going to know that you're there for them for the long haul. We break it down a little bit more into working with some other parts. We have to understand the inner critic. So a lot of us get really locked into a battle between the inner child and the inner critic. That's happening 10 times a day. Most of the time, it's happening in our subconscious. We're not really aware of it. But your inner critic is really, really good at telling you all the reasons why you're not good enough. It has like a little rant that's like, if only you and you should. And, what's the matter with you? And it gives you, this sort of checklist of all the things that are wrong with you. And it's speaking directly to your inner child. So your inner critic's like, you're not good enough. And your inner child's like, I know, I'm so terrible. And that this conflict, it's sort of like a tennis match going on between these parts of us. And what we want to do is cultivate an internal loving parent to step in between those. I know we would never speak to anyone the way we speak to ourselves. That inner critic can be so mean and so vicious, and it's so bad for you. It's so bad for your psyche, for your physical body, to have that super negative critical voice in your head all the time. So when we start clearing that up and we we talk to ourselves with more loving kindness in our own head, we feel better. I think we're able to achieve more in life For me, and I use inner child work all the time in my business. And when I teach business stuff too, to psychics and empaths, because the next thing I'm going to do in my business is always scary to my inner child, even though it could be a really clear assignment for my higher self. So I feel like healing the critic, the dynamic between the critic and the inner child is also really good for manifesting and creating a life that you want.
Hmm. That's really interesting. It's almost like, yeah, it's like there's something about getting buy-in from a full team in an organization
Yeah,
before you move forward on an initiative. It's sort of similar with like your
that's
inner
right.
child. You don't want one team member, wait, holding back.
Yeah, because that inner child will go into sabotage. So much of our sabotaging behaviors is like the inner child just putting their foot down and being like, you can't make me do that. And I'm going to come with lots of clever ways to sabotage you and prevent you from doing that thing I'm scared to do. So, yeah, we work with the saboteur archetype quite a lot too. And I think when we lovingly caretake this part of us, we do get buy-in from all of those archetypes, and we can really move forward in our life in some really powerful ways.
Well, this is all really fascinating, and I'd love for you to share a little bit more about why, what's unique to empaths about this process, or like why is it so important for them?
I think there's definitely such a strong connection that we have with our inner child. I've just noticed of all the years that I've been doing empath work that empaths seem extra tuned in to their inner child. They might struggle a little bit more with finding that the strong adult. They might like sort of live more in the inner child or live more in that dynamic between the inner child and the inner critic, because of their sensitivity, because of their connection with their own emotions. Yeah, we just feel a little bit more at mercy too. And the good thing about it is that we also have the ability to connect with, perceive, talk about, love, because empaths are so, loving and kind. There's incredible healing potential here too. Sometimes people have trouble feeling the inner child, and empaths never do. They always can feel their inner child.
Well, it's all really fascinating, Lisa, and already you've offered a lot of really illuminating insights. So I want to spend some time now talking about your upcoming course, which is a great opportunity to do this work and really experience the benefits. So Lisa's agreed to teach a groundbreaking new program. It's called Liberate Your Divine Child Within. Build resilience as an empath through energy work, nervous system support, and sacred reparenting. You can find it at the URL sacredreparenting.com, sacredreparenting.com. It's a 7-week program. There are no prerequisites. It's really just if you feel intuitively drawn to do this work. So Lisa, let's hear about some of your intentions for what people will come away with, and then give a tour of the program.
Yeah, I think the overall goal is to really establish that direct communication with your inner child, to learn those nervous system and emotional regulation techniques, to kind of get very clear on the cast of characters for all of your internal landscape who's in there, and give you some very strong, solid techniques to do the inner child work, to do the sacred reparenting process so that you can live even more in the divine child.
Great. So module 1 is called Meeting Your Inner Child to Reclaim Your Creative Intuitive Gifts.
Yeah, we're going to spend some time really learning to recognize both the wounded and empowered aspects of the inner child and the spiritual significance that they have there. We're going to deep dive into why empaths struggle with inner child wounds and how those block our intuition. And that's where we kind of learn the daily practices for maybe journaling, meditating, dialoguing with that inner child. And of course, we'll be doing some guided meditations to meet the child, and continue to meet different versions of our inner children in that module.
Module 2, Healing the Parent Wound to Release Survival Patterns and Reclaim Your True Self.
This is where we really look at how your childhood shaped your self-worth and disconnected you from your divine nature. We're going to go into some of the survival patterns that we all learned, like people pleasing, perfectionism, emotional caretaking, and how they create energetic blocks that suppress our spiritual gifts. We're going to meet the inner protector, while really so we can learn some really powerful strategies about how to protect the inner child and release old family rules, like looking at the lineage issues, so that, because your survival self is helped you survive, but it's not always really who you authentically are. And that's our goal, is to get back to our authentic self.
Module 3, healing generational and ancestral trauma to break old cycles and restore your intuitive gifts.
This is where we're going to discover how our ancestral patterns are stored in our DNA and in our energy field, and really look at how our soul's agreement, maybe our contracts with our parents, what they are and how they really are about helping us heal, even though sometimes it doesn't seem that way. I'm also going to be doing some quantum healings here to do a powerful healing and clearing of that ancestral trauma. And maybe we'll learn some techniques too, like working with a sacred altar and how to connect with the healed and benevolent ancestors, guides that we all have.
Module 4, creating emotional and energetic safety to end overwhelm and strengthen your intuitive clarity.
This is where we understand how and why trauma lives in our nervous system and how it can block our spiritual gifts. So we're going to learn some breath work, some grounding practices, some self-soothing techniques to help us regulate our emotions and open our intuitive channels safely. So we're going to kind of get some fine-tuning around the difference between empathic overwhelm and true intuitive guidance from this divine child. And we'll be working on some spiritual protection practices and energy protection practices to keep our energy field clear.
Module 5, becoming the loving inner parent to access unconditional love and clear guidance.
This is such a good one. This is where we embody the divine parent archetype and learn to access unconditional love as a spiritual practice, meeting our higher self as the perfect loving parent through a guided meditation. And that helps us really nail down how we the sacred reparenting process and how we can stop draining ourselves by seeking external validation. It's a powerful way to anchor trust, spiritual safety, and really confident psychic perception through some really beautiful practices.
Module 6, befriending the inner critic to reclaim power, discernment, and intuitive clarity.
This is where we do the inner critic work, recognizing the voice of the inner critic and understanding what it's really protecting you from. And we're going to compassionately transform the critic from this sort of saboteur into a beautiful, powerful, intuitive ally and guardian of the truth. And this is where we move from self-judgment to discernment. It's a fine line between judgment and discernment, but it's really the superpower of your inner critic. And we're going to be healing and integrating the critic through a guided meditation so that it can transform into the devoted protector it's always meant to be.
And finally, Module 7, celebrating the magical and integrated child to awaken joy, play, and full intuitive expression.
This one's so fun. This is where we will bring up your spiritual gifts and intuitive abilities and see what really emerges from that healed inner child, where we can fully embrace our empathic nature as this sacred gift that connects you to your divine wisdom, and sort of see what you have, what your full psychic capacities are. We're going to really concentrate on awakening joy, playfulness, and creative expression, so that you can live more in that state all the time.
Well, what a great program this is. And again, it's laid out in more detail at sacredreparenting.com. So in addition to the 7 90-minute live sessions with Lisa, you're going to have time to ask your questions live. You'll be able to do interactive practices together. You also get recordings of every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts to work with and study and highlight. There's weekly practices you can do every week for deeper learning. There's a community to support you and build community around this work. And Lisa's also been generous with a number of extra bonuses as well, which you can see on the page at sacredreparenting.com. Chapter 1 from Sacred Reparenting. This is an advanced preview PDF excerpt from Lisa's new book. You want to share a little bit about that new book in chapter 1?
Yeah, sure. So writing a book, it's nearly done, called Sacred Reparenting. And this is, I'm giving away the first chapter. I'm super excited about it. It'll be coming out a little bit later in 2026.
That's just one bonus. The second bonus is called Sacred Reparenting, a 30-day inner child healing journey. There's a full PDF guide that Lisa's included. You want to share more about that as well?
Yeah, that's a 30-day journal that's full of, it's beautiful. It's full of really thoughtful journal prompts that are designed to help you sort of support you as we're going through the course to continue to ask yourself the questions that will help you connect even more with your inner child.
And then there's a third bonus that's available just for those who sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. There's a video teaching with Lisa and Mary Size, who also teaches for Shift. It's called Healing Your Inner Child Through EFT Tapping. Want to share a little bit more about that bonus and why EFT tapping is particularly a powerful methodology for working with the inner child?
Yeah, that was so fun. I love Mary, and I love tapping and EFT is for inner child work. And Mary and I did a really beautiful little workshop for you that tapping, I think, really is so effective at doing nervous system regulation and emotional regulation. I think there's hardly anything that works as well as that. So just thrilled that Mary was so generous in giving this gift because it's incredibly effective, and she does it in such a beautiful way.
Well, that's the special bonus you get if you sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. So it's called Healing Your Inner Child Through EFT Tapping with Lisa and Mary Size. Well, it's truly going to be such a valuable program for anybody who chooses to move forward. It's just 3 payments of $128. You save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start February 10th and run Tuesdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community. So there's some beautiful testimonials on the page from people who took Lisa's previous programs at Shift and really have been empowered to in their gifts as a healer. Lisa is a master's master, helped me rise into the healer I am today. She embodies what it means to be a gifted, intuitive healer while at the same time one in the group. So you're in really good hands, and you will get some very deep healing and evolutionary insight and teaching for taking the time to go through the journey with Lisa. So again, it's all at sacredreparenting.com, and you will get that special bonus when you sign up by midnight tonight of healing your inner child through EFT tapping. So Lisa, we've covered a lot of ground in a short time, so thank you for all your insights and practices. And so anything you still want to share with folks who are considering doing the full course with you?
I'm so excited to bring this work out into the larger world. This is the first time I'm teaching this material really anywhere, and it's just I'm so thrilled to be able to do it, and especially here on the Shift Network because I love working with you all so much. So I'm just delighted, and I hope that people really take advantage of this incredible course because I think for me, inner child work has really, of all the healing modalities and methods I've done, this is the one that's given me the most benefit.
Well, that's a strong testimonial, and it rings with truth. So it's very clear that all of us have inner children that have wounds and things to clear and heal. And so this is really the foundation of how we lead a more integrated and whole life. So again, you can get all the details on Lisa's course at sacredreparenting.com, and you get that special bonus if you sign up by midnight tonight of healing your inner child through EFT tapping. So thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you all for joining. Many blessings.
Thanks, Stephen.